it's not like, oh, I'm forever good with my anaphylactic allergen now. It's some people, it's just, which is what I would want, one bite safe.
You have this ball and chain of something that you have to do every day. And if there is a slight mistake or something goes on, well, then that does impact your life.
Totally.
And your day.
The whole day.
Yes.
I have a lot of very severe food allergy anxiety, and I always have. Hi.
Hello,
And welcome to EpiPod. Sarah is a mom to 2 little boys with food allergies.
And Danielle has navigated life-threatening allergies her entire life.
Living with an invisible health condition is so isolating.
The fear and the anxiety.
Trying to cover it up so you don't affect anybody else.
Especially your kids. Sound familiar?
Join us on the couch and take a load off with people who just get it.
We're so glad you're here. Hey, Danielle.
Hey, Sarah.
This is episode 4.
Episode 4.
We are going to be talking about treatment options out there. So everything from OIT to TIP. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry. We will go over it in this episode. Yes. But we have a lot of questions that come into our social media pages about these topics.
And I feel like as an adult in treatment, which is a little bit more rare, and by a little bit, I mean quite rare.
Very rare.
I get asked, like, how's it going? Is it worth it? All of these things. And that's something I'm definitely still figuring out, but something I want to go over today is the things that I wish I had been told by someone who had been through it when I started. Because I feel like I've been in it for a year, and there's so many things where I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had known this, or I wish I'd been able to fully wrap my brain around what this meant.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to share that.
Let's get into it.
Okay.
Now's a good time to share a little story about a boy named Abraham. He grew up with severe food allergies to eggs, nuts, and more, and his fanny pack carrying his EpiPens became his trademark. His dad and uncle ran a commercial bakery, but he couldn't enjoy anything that they made. So about 10 years ago, they started a new line of treats called Abe's, made in a dedicated facility and free from dairy, egg, peanuts, tree nuts, except for coconut, soy, sesame, and pea protein. And pea protein is a big one now. I think it's really cool that they're calling that out on their labeling. I think a lot of parents are glad to see that.
I totally agree. And as a non-parent, I'm glad to see that too, because a lot of allergy-friendly, quote-unquote, brands scare me because they exchange things for like pea protein or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's just as bad. Yes. So I love that this is pea protein free as well.
And that they did this for this little boy, for their little boy, you know?
And they named it after him.
Yes, best dad and uncle ever. Look for Abe's mini muffins, brownies, and cakes in the bakery department of your local grocery store.
Woohoo! How's your week been before we jump in?
It has been sick kids on sick kids on sick kids on sick grown-ups. And so it has just been a little exhausting, but you know, that is life right now in this season. And I'm just trying to accept it, but we're still trying to figure out, do we get Graham's tonsils out because they're enlarged? He keeps getting strep, but then, you know, while that impacts treatment, it's also sort of like, well, if we get them out, it's going to really impact treatment and we're going to have to be set back very far. So I feel like that's been weighing on me a little bit.
Yeah. What's very far? Like 2 weeks of no dosing or no treatment whatsoever?
I think so. I think it would be at least 2 weeks, but then that would set us back. Like we would have to kind of ramp up on a lot of things. And we've worked so hard, as we'll get into in this episode, on the day-to-day life that I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Is he still waking up and feeling like he can't breathe because the tonsils are enlarged? Did that happen again this week?
It did not happen this week. Thankfully, we avoided that. We've added a few things to his room, like a humidifier. We have propped his head up a little more. Good. We are trying to do like steam showers and then like get him to cold air. That's supposed to open your airway a little bit. We're making sure like we're doing everything to decrease inflammation. I mean, we're doing everything that we can.
Full Monty.
Yes, but it's okay. How are you? I know that you've been a busy bee.
Yeah, I feel like I have lived truly like 6 months of life in a week and a half.
That's a lot.
With South by Southwest, I purchased a new car. Yes. I went to Dallas to go get it. Just a lot of work things, and with treatment on top of it. Yeah. It's been a lot.
I was going to say, let's just dive in, because you have had to skip some doses, right? Because of how busy you've been. So let's start from the ground up. Mm-hmm. What are you doing in terms of treatment? What is your treatment?
Yeah. So just as a recap, I am severely anaphylactic allergic to peanuts and most tree nuts. Basically, I'm okay with almonds and I love almond butter. Found that out with all of the scratch test, blood test, and food challenge, and I'm good with it. I have yet to crunch into an actual almond because PTSD. But I love almond butter. Shout out Barney butter. I don't know what I would do without it, which is wild.
Yeah, it's a peanut-free almond butter. Mm-hmm. Yes, we use it too.
Yeah, but I mean, I avoided almond the way that I avoid peanuts for my whole life. Coffee shops were so stressful. Like almond is, I feel like, a very common one.
Yeah, it's used in a lot of things like baking things. Yeah, coffee things, and milk.
Yeah, so not only being completely safe from that, but something that I look forward to and enjoy and really utilize as a source of protein and like fast, safe things that I can pack. Like if I'm going to I went to a music festival too this past week and a half, which required a small road trip. Like it's just a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot. So those are my allergens, and I am currently in OIT treatment.
OIT, oral immunotherapy.
Thank
for anyone
you.
who really doesn't
know
or has not looked into it yet or is brand new to the allergy world.
Yes. And I'm doing that for peanut, which is they're all anaphylactic. So I guess the full list is cashew, pistachio, walnut, pecan, and peanut.
Okay.
And through the first sort of phase of testing and food challenges, we learned that I am no longer allergic to chickpeas, which I had a really scary experience with in high school. And I learned later on, actually they're a legume, so they're related to the peanut. And I'm not brave enough to do chickpea on the reg, but that's another really common one that I just feel so much better about when I see on a menu. I'm like, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. So we started, our programs differ in basically every way.
Yeah.
But OIT, we dove straight into peanut, which is at least, and when you're looking at the blood tests, which my allergist always says, like, they give me a really good educated guess. That's my worst one by far.
Yeah.
So we went straight in for that one.
And when you say straight in, you mean you started appointment 1 eating a tiny peanut particle.
Yes.
Like protein, but in like the smallest form.
Mm-hmm. So I get a lot of DMs from other allergy adults who have been told, just like I was their whole life, treatment is not possible. Your allergy is too high, too severe. It's not safe for adults. Like I have been told this by allergists before. And then I go to Aspire Allergy, which is, they have clinics in, I believe, 5 states, but Texas is one of them. Their HQ is here in Austin. And my doctor is Dr. Silvers, Dr. Stacy Silvers. He's the best. He's so kind. He comes from a very researched perspective, which really speaks a lot of, as much calm into my flood of anxiety when I'm there for appointments. When he's always truthful. He can't say you are 100% yes or no, but he's like, I do not think so because of this research, or I do not think so because of these things that we have done testing wise. So allergy adults will reach out and be like, I've been told that this isn't possible for me. It's not safe. My doctor would never do it. Like, walk me through how you even got started. So the first step is always testing, which my first allergy test was when I was 25, which is crazy. My first EpiPen was also when I was 25. Like, the first time I carried one with me actively and knew that I had to medically was 25, which is like, how do you go through most of your adult life? I'm just 32 now, so it's only been that many years.
Wow.
I always had that severe of allergy. I just never had an allergist do testing. So you start with a scratch test and then you move on to a blood test. And then my doctor looks at those two together, and sometimes one will say you're not allergic and one will say you are very allergic. So it's like, which one is true? And the only thing that really matters is can you or can you not eat it safely, which is what a food challenge is. You're there for the majority of the day, like 6 to 8 hours. And essentially he's giving you start with a microdose, and then by the end it's a full serving, and you wait for a certain amount of time in between each one. so that he makes sure you're good to go. And if you make it to the full serving and the waiting period afterwards, you're cleared.
And that's
you
for
can
a
eat it
food
freely.
challenge. This is not OIT.
This is not treatment.
Yes.
This is like what we did to figure out, okay, blood and skin says almond's good. Let's make sure under my supervision. Pistachio and cashew, which are cross-related, the blood test said not allergic or very low allergic levels, like not anaphylactic, maybe just sensitivity, maybe nothing. Skin says you're clear. We did the food challenge. I was very much so not clear, failed it on the microdose. It was scary, but I was in office, didn't need the EpiPen, but it was scary. I was terrified.
Yeah.
The sesame, it shows on my blood more allergic than I was to pistachio and cashew, no reaction on the skin. So it's like, which one is it? And I'm like, I eat sesame all the time.
It's so frustrating how these tests don't actually tell you much.
Right.
They're only like markers for then a trained person to be able to look at and take their best guess.
My favorite crackers actually are like more sesame seeds than anything else. And I showed him, I was like, I eat sesame seeds all the time. Like I eat these pretty much every day. And he was like, well, let's do the food challenge with tahini, which is ground up. I felt so sick afterwards, not because I was allergic, but just because it was not for me. The taste,
You didn't like it.
oh my gosh, it was terrible. Like I was sick to my stomach, but not like allergy sick. Just I can't. I've documented it all on TikTok, vlogged it, and I was like, unfortunately dry heaving, and I had to
I don't think I've seen that one.
Well, I had to keep cutting it out because I was like, you can't put this on the internet. It was so bad.
You could have. You may have gone more viral if you had.
The nurses and he took pity on me, and they were like, okay, you're clearly like, you're totally fine. Like, let's just skip the last couple. Since you eat it on the daily, you've had no allergic, whatever. Like, let's just do the full serving now that we're close to it.
Yeah.
And get you out of here. And I was like, thank you, God. Like, oh my gosh. So anyways, that's the process of how he even decides what is, or the blood test and the scratch test is how he decides what we're going to food challenge and what you are straight anaphylactic allergic. Example, peanut, huge skin reaction, huge blood reaction. So and we know from past reactions, I am anaphylactic to that.
Right.
So he would never be like, let's food challenge.
No.
Never. That doesn't make sense.
No.
So you go straight into treatment or not if you decide to not seek out OIT. I have a lot of, why am I already feeling like I'm going to cry?
Because this is weighing on you.
Yeah. I actually haven't been talking about treatment on the internet, which is funny when you're a person of the internet, probably for about a month and a half.
You've got tissues coming.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Always need these. Yeah, I have not talked about it on the internet because I don't want to trigger anybody else. And I also believe in speaking out of scars, not wounds. It's been really hard. I've been in it for a year and I've had ups and downs. But starting in mid-January, I started to basically have panic attacks right when I would swallow the dose. I have a lot of very severe food allergy anxiety, and I always have. So when people see my treatment videos, especially the earlier ones, or when I went from solution, which the microdose is so small, you can't just, there's no way to split up a peanut or peanut butter.
Right.
It's a mixture that they make at Aspire Allergy that is essentially like some sort of liquid, tastes like medicine, and peanut flour. And then when I switched to Bombas, which is like a peanut butter Cheeto, essentially, that was a really hard day. And that video went quite viral, and people always say like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. I could never do this. Like, you're so brave. But I just could never do this. And this is a testament. If there's anybody who suffers from food allergy anxiety, it's me. Like, I'm not brave. I just really want a shot at safety of like having some more insurance. And the reason I'm crying so much is because I'm currently trying to decide whether or not I even want to keep going with OIT, which is why I'm okay speaking out of a wound and not a scar today, because there are things that I wish somebody had told me beforehand, not to deter me, but just, I think I would have had a little bit more grace for myself. Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously emotional for you for a lot of reasons, but I think sometimes those comments, while people mean well, it's almost a little bit of pressure, I think too, that you're putting on yourself, that you like, well, people think I'm brave, so I need to keep being brave. Yeah. And you are, it takes so much bravery to do what you're doing every day, but at the same time, choosing not to do it is brave too, if that's what's best for your life. And I'm impressed by you every day that you are able to kind of all on your own, completely on your own, do something this scary that you've already had this built up anxiety about. I mean, that does take so much bravery and courage every single day. And you're inspiring to others, but also you need to follow your gut, your heart in what is best for your life.
And thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. And I need to hear it. I think I always looked at like, success is you're just trying it. And I think as I've gone along this process, success is also like really knowing myself. I'm always scanning my body for reactions. All allergy people are. But I also think success is like scanning myself for, just because I need to be protecting myself from allergies, I also need to be protecting my mental health. Yes. And this might not be what's best for me. Might not be what's best for other people. So let's rewind. OIT, essentially what that looks like the day-to-day, you start with, like I was saying, the solution. You start with like the micro of all micro doses. Like we're talking 0.0025,
like a 500th of a peanut, like not even, like you can't even measure it.
You can't see it with the bare eye. Right. And it's like in this tiny little syringe. And you work your way up every week, or in my case, because of how much anxiety I had and my age and how allergic I am, it was every 2 weeks. And sometimes I've been doing really well with it and it is every week. And sometimes like where I'm at right now, I haven't been for an updose in almost 2 months. So you choose a time of day where you're not going to have had recent, I guess, like exercise, like your heart rate has to be normal. You can't like go to a SoulCycle class and then go into the clinic for an updose or go home and do an updose. So you have to be wary about like, what is the state of your body before doing this? And then you have to be very, very mindful for an hour afterwards is sort of like the my quote unquote danger zone. Like that's where you're going to be most likely to see a problem if you're going to have a problem. And then for the 2 hour mark is where you're okay to go to a workout class or get very warm from the sun. Basically anything that's going to change your metabolic rate can factor in. So heat, I couldn't get into a hot shower right after dosing or even at the 1 hour mark. Like a very hot shower would be bad. A jacuzzi, living in Austin, Texas, where it's 109 feels like 122, like going outside to get the mail. That's not something I can do after a dose. Like walking around, in my case, chasing after my dog, or, one day if I'm ever a mom, I don't know how it would work. Like, what if my kid's about to like fall down the stairs? Like, how do I run across the house to get to them, So I don't know what this looks like for future me. Before I go into that, there's a lot of rules afterwards and somewhat before to make sure you're in the right state. But yeah, you basically up the dose until you get to whatever your goal is. And just like allergies, everybody's goal is different. For some younger kids, they want to be able to have like a full PB&J and be safe. Granted, it is not a cure. It's just treatment. So it's not like, oh, I'm forever good with my with my anaphylactic allergen now, some people it's just, which is what I would want, one bite safe, where if there is cross contamination or the restaurant does make a mistake or a friend invited you over for dinner and didn't understand exactly how to read a label, there was a big oops. It can even be your fault. Like it's a brand you've always bought and something changed. You can take a bite,
realize the mistake
and be like, okay, I eat whatever it is, 4 peanuts or whatever it is, 4 peanut M&Ms every single morning. I just ate and swallowed something with peanuts in it. Probably wasn't 4 peanuts worth. I need to take care of myself, but it's not like, oh my God, I just swallowed, I got to get EpiPen, think about going to the hospital. Like, it's just it's
a layer of protection.
It's a layer of insurance.
Yeah.
So that was my ultimate and eventual goal with OIT. With little kids, the body handles the stress a lot better. They don't have accidents, any like trauma, PTSD vibes. And I mean, gosh, I just imagine if I had done this when I was a little girl, I was truly fearless. Like I was going to summer camp and like, oh my God, oops. Like I got a welt because somebody threw like a marshmallow with peanut butter on me. And like, I wasn't fearing for my life. If that happened to me today,
yeah,
even though I know like contact is probably not going to send me to the hospital, I would be day ruined. Yeah. Like anxiety tidal wave. So like as a child, you just haven't had accidents. You haven't read the terrifying news stories, whatever. Why I'm struggling now. I mean, this past year, I've gone through the mountains and valleys. Like sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes I have to cancel really important meetings that could have totally changed my bottom line for the end of year because I had a dose that went badly. And the brand is only in town for the week. And this is our last day in town. I had a dose go bad and now I can't meet with them because I have to stay basically like inside and resting the rest of the day.
That's a lot.
Yeah. You're SOL.
Yeah. And so on one hand, it's like you're thinking about, well, if I get through this program and I have this layer of security or protection, well, that could change my life for the better. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, you are in some ways, your hands are tied or strapped. You know, you have this ball and chain of something that you have to do every day. And if there is a slight mistake or something goes on, well, then that does impact your life.
Totally.
And your day.
The whole day.
Yes.
Can be a wash. And I've had a lot of days be an absolute wash.
And to know that that might be your forever, that feels really daunting.
Totally. Yeah. We're good.
Truck just went by.
Truck just went by. I'm like,
what is that noise?
Yeah. So I'll dive into like the things I wish I had known before going in, but just to give a little bit more color as to why I'm struggling so much recently. I am almost up to the amount of milligrams that is in one peanut in Bomba form, which is huge. Bomba is that puff. It's commercially bought product. Like I remember when I went to HEB, to the grocery store here in Austin, or all of Texas really, and I got the Bomba and I texted you and I was like, I can't believe like, this isn't just like a medicine that's at my doctor's office that they made that I can pretend is just medicine. Like this is something that I bought at the grocery store that says contains peanuts.
Right.
The number one ingredient is ground peanut.
You avoid forever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're buying the product. It feels
wild.
Totally wild.
Like I had to, even though it's a sealed bag, airtight bag, put in a grocery bag, I had to go to the bathroom before I could even get in my car to wash my hands. Like I was just like, So I have come an extremely long way. Like
huge.
My personal goal, Dr. Silver says sitting pretty, would be 3 to 4 peanuts a day. And I'm almost to 1 in Bomba form. Like I'm on my way and I was doing really well this fall, like leading up to the holidays. And I was like, whoa, like I actually can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like this is working for me. I'm still figuring out schedule wise. Like I wake up in the morning, it eats up half my day. Because taking care of the dog, taking care of myself, eating, you have to have a full stomach when you do it, waiting for my stomach to sort of like the food to really line, 15 minutes, whatever, preparing the dose. It's like a full science experiment on my counter, decontaminating the space afterwards. Like it is a lot. It truly is. I joke that it's a full-time job and that is an exaggeration, but this is like more than a part-time job. working as self-employed and as freelance, this is my hardest client. Like, my treatment is my most difficult client. It takes the most time, constant mental gymnastics. So, but I was doing it. Like, I was figuring it out. I traveled for basically like 3 or 4 months. For the whole summer I was gone. Charleston, Los Angeles. Basically, it's just like the most record high summer here in Austin. And I was like, I can't do this. Mental health, I can't do this. So I left town and I made it all work with treatment. And I was like, okay, like, we don't know if this is for forever, but like, we're at least figuring it out, and that's something to be proud of. And then around January, there was a really tragic story that came out, and it just scared the bejesus out of me, because the whole thing was, she was an adult. She took her allergy very seriously. It was a mislabeled cookie from a grocery store situation. Terrible accident. She lost her life. And the article was so irresponsibly written. It was just like so sensationalized, and it didn't have the information that somebody who actually does live with this medically would need to know if you're going to read something like that. Basically what we were told is she used the EpiPen and it wasn't enough. And what I do every morning, I'm signing up for possibly going into anaphylaxis and needing my EpiPen and needing it to work. And that's something that I'm always aware of, is like, okay, like, this is truly like facing your worst fear every single day. But you have the EpiPen, you have the plan in place, like, the medicine will work. So hearing like, and it wasn't enough, was really damaging. So I had a panic attack, basically like took the dose, had a panic attack, and had like a racing heart for probably like a little over 20 minutes. It was like I was running a marathon, like, to my body, heart rate wise, which is then breaking the rules of OIT, and did cause a bit of a reaction. I had hives. My throat felt really funny. And by funny, it felt like not just anxiety tightness and anxiety like, oh my gosh, my throat feels really small. And just like the insane amount of impending doom that I was having did not allow me to be able to be like, okay, this is obviously like extreme anxiety. Sarah actually like was at a birthday party with her boys, like just arriving. She and her husband and her boys are arriving to this birthday party. And I call her on like midday on a Saturday, which is odd to not just like check in with a funny text or whatever. And immediately I was like, take me off of speakerphone. Like, I don't want your boys to hear this. And she...
Stomach dropped for me yeah. In that moment. I knew something wasn't right.
Yeah. Like, drove across town. Like, as soon as you got there, like, I was able to turn it around. But yeah, just like doing this alone is so hard. And even just like, I had a friend in town yesterday, so she was with me while I dosed, and it is just a wildly different day. Just having another human there. She's not like necessarily trained with the EpiPen, but just having another human in the apartment with me, night and day. So it's been obviously really hard. And then another story came out like that right as I working with my therapist, working with Dr. Silvers to sort of like give me a break and then ramp me back up right as I reached, you know, almost to the original dose that I was at, which is just under a peanut. Yeah. Another story came out, except this time she was a doctor and she lost her life at a place that is notorious for being amazing with allergies. It happened all over again. And I'm in this place where I don't want this to be the reason that I don't do treatment, or I decide it's not for me. But yeah, just figuring out a way to like honor my mental health, but also make a decision that is OIT for me or not, versus, wow, the way that this was reported was really irresponsibly done. And it stole from me something that I've been working a year for. Yeah.
I think it's really important to hear you go through these motions and to hear how it's affecting you for other people, other adults who might be considering OIT. Not that they'll have this exact same experience, but I think it's important for them to know that, like, if they're in their own apartment, living alone and trying to take something like this on, like, it is harder. It is going to be harder than if they're at home with their parents, or if they have even a roommate, and can kind of schedule it around, okay, this is when we're both normally here. Because it's, again, that layer of not protection necessarily, because yes, they might not be super trained on the epinephrine, but at least there's another human there in that moment that you can lean on if something happens. It likely won't, but if it does, there's somebody there. And so I think other people who are listening who might be considering, that is something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Where do you live? Who do you live with? And when does your schedule allow you to have these 2 hours that it takes?
Yeah. It's also like, just what is your own disposition? I am a rule follower. I am an anxious person just by nature. I always have been a very cautious, overthinking, even as a kindergartner, like I was an overthinker. So, yeah, like for some people, my mountains are going to be somebody else's, like not even molehill. So that's why I haven't felt comfortable speaking on it, especially short form on the internet. I don't want to do what basically happened to me. I don't want my triggers to be somebody else's reason to not do something that's totally going to be the right fit for them. So I'll quickly go through sort of like the things that I wish I had known.
Yeah,
and these are things that were true before I was having these issues. Like, I also was like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. Like, the program's doing great, but I don't know if this is going to be for me. Because OIT, and I know this is different for you all, I explain it to people like you're a bodybuilder, or you're like an Olympic gymnast. Just because you won a gold medal at the Olympics, if you stop training for 4 years and then you try and go to the Olympics again, you're going to break your neck. Like, you can't pull off these things if you haven't continued to work out every day. It's a muscle. So if you stop, the tolerance, you're not...
Everything you've worked for, poof.
Yeah. So people think, even my own family, like, didn't even realize this until this like panic sort of season that I've been in sort of set in. They were like, but you're almost there and then you'll be done. And I'm like, no, this is my reality for the rest of my life. I think also being a person in their early 30s, like, I have learned what life is like without these limitations. So here are my 5 things that I wish I had known ahead of time. And maybe some of them will be repeating what I've just said through tears, but now that I'm no longer crying, you can fully understand me. The first thing is, when I started treatment, in my head, it was like, oh, I'm so limited by this allergy, like this thing that most people don't have to think about. I am thinking about constantly. I'm looking at candles. I'm looking at what's on the floor. I'm looking at what my dog has walked in to see if I need to wash his paws. Like, I'm thinking about not just what I'm eating, but it's all encompassing. But if I do OIT, I'll have insurance. I'll be so much safer. I'll be free. And it's like, no, like, you are trading this freedom for that freedom, but you're also trading these limitations for those limitations. It's sort of how people say, like, oh, I wish I had her life. Like this millionaire who's married to, like, I don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio or something. Like, oh, I want her life. And it's like, really? Because then you'd have to have all parts of her life, all the good and all the bad. And I think I just was looking at the good of like what could be, but I didn't realize you're also giving up what you have. You're giving up waking up and going to a hot yoga class at 6 a.m. You're giving up, like, before I would only be like full body scanning when I like ate something that I didn't prepare. Now I'm full body scanning. I'm like preparing for an allergic reaction every single morning and scanning my body for an allergic reaction every single morning and having a cortisol wave of freak out every single morning. Like, granted, again, not everybody's going to have these issues, but personally for my anxiety and past experiences, like, this is my reality. So yeah, it's not as easy as just like, and you could have this freedom. You can have this freedom, but you're also going to have different limitations. Yeah. So it's just figuring out like which bucket it's the devil you know or the devil you don't. And maybe the devil you would prefer. And I didn't look at it that way, and I wish I had. The second thing is not having someone else there is so hard. Like, when I go home to my hometown, which I'm actually doing later today, like having my parents there is nice, but like I get uncomfortable if I don't have like a car or one of them home. Cause I'm like, I can't just be completely stranded, like way the heck out here. Like,
Right.
You have to give me at least a car. So yeah, like even when I'm around people, sort of educating them on what that means. Like you can't come in here hot and like start an argument with me when I've just swallowed this thing. Or you can't like expect me to be able to like help unload the groceries right now. Like I know the ice cream will melt, but I really can't get up and like lift heavy things. I swallowed this thing like 5 minutes ago. So yeah, just like if there's people there, it's hard on them. It's like a scary thing to watch somebody else do that you love. And if you are a single girly really like me, like it is a lot. Like I'm always worried about my personal safety, but this is a whole nother level.
And you're doing it to yourself too. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah. I feel like if it's just really hard to be brave about anything else the rest of the day. Like I feel like every single morning I get a pitcher of orange juice. And the orange juice is my bravery, just like my BS meter almost. And like once you've used up all that orange juice, like you're done until tomorrow. Like your brain, your mental health, your body, like you're done. And so far, treatment takes up 100% of that orange juice and probably a little more. So I'm already at a deficit of like bravery. So I don't want to eat out. I don't want to take calculated risks. I am tired. I want to be at peace. So that's something that I like didn't realize that I would be so tapped.
I love your analogies.
Thanks.
Or your metaphors, I guess
Thanks.
is what you would call them. But we need to write these down. We need to make a book.
Okay, let's make a book. Fourth, we're almost done. It really affects everything. And I already said that a little bit, but like before I used to think about like, oh, I'm eating something. Are we good? Okay, we're good. And I would know very quickly because I'm so reactive. I knew my body was very reactive. Like it's not like an hour later, personally, not true for everybody. Personally, it's not like an hour later, I'm going to be like, whoa, what did I eat an hour ago? My body was like, you know, something's not right. Now I am having to and I was micromanaging that. Now I'm micromanaging when I can shower, when I can sleep, when I can dry and curl my hair and get super flushed from all of the heat, when I can work out, when my dog can go to the bathroom, when I can like get really emotional. Like I can't have a full come apart in the dosing before or after. Like I can't. So it has gone from food and like things that I might touch or be in my environment to can I go to sleep safely? And it's like, what? Can I bathe? What?
Yeah. And at this point, that other stuff, the first stuff, isn't taken off of your plate yet. You're still doing that and now just adding this to your plate. So it's a lot.
Yeah, the mental gymnastics is insane. I'm not a math and science person. STEM was never my game. Never will be. So I'm constantly like calculating everything, like hours. Okay, am I in the window of being able to do it? Okay, this, that, the other. It's just a lot, like the mental load. Not to mention my life, socially and work-wise, like that all just sort of gets like punted into the corner of the room until all this is over. And 5, I already said this, it's like a full-time job, but it's that you think like, oh, it's the hour. And then the second hour you're out of the danger zone. Like you have to you can't go to a soul cycle class in the second hour, but like you can move around, and that's easy to think and it's easy to say. And I definitely could move closer towards that. Like I definitely am a lot more cautious than I need to be. That's what I mean. But I lost my train of thought. What did I say?
You were saying in the second hour that you can't go to a soul cycle class, but you still have to be cautious.
Oh, right. It's a full-time job. Sorry. Okay. That's another like maybe cut moment. Woo. Okay. It is a full-time job, and I'm very aware that I could be less cautious. I am way overly cautious because this is just so big for me. But it really sticks with me. Like you think about if you've had an allergic reaction, like that sticks with you for days. This sticks to me. Like that mucus commercial, that like Mucinex commercial, it sticks to me for the whole day. I'm just like, And it's so hard to get your day started. Like, it's so hard to shed that and then be Danielle.
Right.
Normal, sparkly, happy, bold.
And like you said, this might not be everybody's experience. There could be somebody out there listening in OIT your age saying like, wow, I just do my dose and I go.
Exactly.
But you have to know who you are. And I think we all do in some aspect kind of know what our anxiety level is, know exactly, you know, if this is something that we're going to be able to kind of move on from or have it stick to you.
Yes.
And I think that's the whole point of your list that I think is so valuable for people is you didn't know that going in. You didn't know that that was a possibility. And if you had, you may have said, I know this is going to stick to me. I know who I am.
Yeah.
And you may have chosen something different. Or maybe you still would have given it a shot, but you at least, it wouldn't have been such a shock. And so I think, again, this is so wonderful to hear this. For so many people, this will help them.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so valid. Like, people who I met, actually, one of my very good friends here, her little sister's boyfriend did OIT for Peanuts and Tree Nuts as an adult. And I met him at a music festival last fall and was just like, oh my gosh, like, I have 3,000 questions for you. And he does not struggle in the same way I struggle. So it I'm sure was scary for him, but like, he did it. It was the right fit for him. And that was that. So yeah, please don't take my experience and my struggles and make them yours. I knowing what I know now, and I'm still doing it. Like, I'm still dosing. I'm just like in this valley. I'm so happy that I did it. Like, the amount of stress it has caused is insane, cuckoo bananas, but I have never felt so proud of myself. It's been a hard year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're really doing it though. You did it. You're doing it right now.
Yeah.
And you're helping so many people along the way on their journeys. And no matter what you decide, you can rest easy knowing that you have done something positive for yourself. You've tried something.
Yeah.
And I think that is really admirable.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think, like, to put a cap on it, how I'm going to decide to whether I want to keep doing this or not. I always said I was going to give it a year. And it's been a year. But I'm working with my therapist to really we're going to be doing some things together and decide basically by like the end of the month or maybe the end of April of like, okay, you've given it a year. We've taken this list and these are things we can change about it. Like, now, do you want the devil you don't know? Because I still look at what could be, and I'm so excited for her future. Yeah. But yeah, I recently got a message from a mom whose daughter completed OIT and she doesn't want to keep going. Like, she's done. She's done with OIT.
She got to her point, her 4 peanuts or whatever
hers was. Yeah. And she doesn't want to dose every day. She's in middle school and she's like, I don't want to do this in college. I want to live. Yeah. Like a normal kid again. And I mean, it's an expensive decision and a lot, but that's valid too. So
yeah. And I think that, you know, you get that agency, you can make that decision, you know? And I think that, yes, working with your therapist is a good idea, especially given like the anxiety element to it. But I think there's power in the fact that, like, even as a middle schooler, that little girl, she should be able to say to her mom, I don't want this anymore. And maybe one day there will be some magical thing that somebody comes up with that, guess what, you don't have to do this wait period, or, you know, you can take it something once a week and have the protection that you used to have if you had to do it every day. And then maybe it would be more manageable for someone like you or for someone in middle school, high school, college. But right now that isn't the case. And so we can sit and wait and hope and pray. But for now, I think this is the decision, and you just have to each person has to make the one that's best for them. Yeah. And sometimes you have to do it. I never do anything the easy way. I always have to do it the hard way. And this is an example. I'm like, nope, I'm going to do this literal scariest thing alive. I actually said this I just like kept the camera rolling for literally like 3 hours at the appointment when I did the Bomba. And I meant this, and it is 100% true. Like, if you gave me the choice of like getting into a tank with a great white shark
that hadn't had a meal in like 12 years, or doing this Bomba thing, a shark. That's less scary to me genuinely than this.
Yeah. So the fact that you're doing it and you're doing it every day on your own, holy Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's incredible.
I didn't have to do it today. Woohoo! Because I'm flying. But yeah, with how crazy South by Southwest and the car and all of the work things, like it's just been a big week. I was last year during the South by Southwest week, my doses, I just started in like late February, and South by is always like second or third week of March vibes. I let the dosing be the priority, and it was at the time. I just started, and I missed a lot of opportunities last year because of it, and I've missed a lot of opportunities throughout the year because I've prioritized dosing. And this week I was just like, it's going to be a priority, but it's going to be the second one. Like, I have to live my life. I'm not going to make myself miserable over this. And it just was like, I'm not going to dose for 5 days. I can't. You cannot do everything.
Right.
So this gets bumped down. Yeah. And I reached out to my doctor and I was like, okay, I skipped 5 days. What do I do? And he was like, yep, this is your ramp back up plan. And I was like, great. He was like, great. And I was like, okay, bye. I was like, talk to you in April.
Right. So maybe if you keep with it, your plan will just be longer than most people's plan. And that's okay too, you know, or maybe you decide it's not for you.
Yeah.
But I think talking through this and just kind of, whether it's with a friend or with your therapist, I mean, you will come to the right decision for you.
I agree. And it's so helpful. If you are an adult OIT person out there, please reach out to me on Instagram or TikTok. And whether it's you're in the trenches with me or you're on the other side and you were like, it really was good for me, I would love to hear from you. That's so helpful. Like meeting that guy last fall, I have several adult OIT people who are like, I tried it wasn't for me, or I tried it and I'm so glad I did it. I just went to the Caribbean and ate a dessert off the dessert cart and was sitting right next to this walnut thing. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'm like, I'm so happy for you. Yeah. So yeah, it's really helpful to hear, even when it's a bad experience. So if you have any experiences, please DM me. I need you guys.
That's great.
Okay. Your turn.
Well, I was actually thinking, let's save it.
Save it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think that episode, that conversation needs to have its own episode. I think it was so impactful for so many people. And, you know, our experience is completely different so far. It's a different, not only is it a different program, but it's with a child. Yeah. Me as the parent, totally. You know, I think there's going to be people out there who want to listen to that and really dive in deeper on it. And then we got to dive in deep on OIT as an adult, which is also a super kind of important topic that people are going to want to listen to. So I think we break it up.
We're doing part 1, part 2.
Part 1, part 2. Yeah. Episode 4, part 1.
Part 1 was Danielle's in the trenches.
No, it was real and raw. And that's what we did this podcast for.
You're the best. Thanks for supporting me so much through this. Like every time I'm at a doctor's appointment, all the way down to like you whisking across town at the last minute. Like you are the allergy mom that I always needed. Like you're such a gift. So thank you.
Oh, I'm here for you.
I'm going to stop crying.
We're running out of tissues.
I know, we really are.
Okay, I'll cry next week, I'm sure.
Perfect.
And if you have questions about this topic or really anything else, we want to make that a part of this podcast where we're answering questions and either giving our informational feedback or just kind of what would we do in a certain situation. So send them to our email, which is we're still learning, wait, hold on. What is it? EpiPod podcast at gmail.com. Look at us. We both need sleep. EpiPod podcast at gmail.com. Send us your questions and we're going to make it a regular part of the show. And you can even have it be something like, hey, I was in this situation. What would you do? Or what would you have said? Or anything like that. But if it is a specific treatment question, certainly ask those too. And hopefully we can get our doctors on too.
Yes.
And then next week, let's talk about all things tolerance induction program at the Food Allergy Institute in California, which is the program that my son is in. And we can deep dive there. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Cool.
Yay. Episode 4 in the books. Y'all leave us a review.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. She's so nice. You have to leave us a review. No, please. Just kidding. No, please leave us a review. It will mean the world and also help get this to the people who need long form stall solidarity in allergy life.
Yes.
Send it to a friend who maybe lives this reality, or family member who needs a little bit more of a window into it.
Yes.
And follow us on social media.
And a big thank you to our sponsors.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Our sponsors. Thank you so much to Abe's Muffins.
Yes. And for any of the discount codes and things that we have, that will be all posted in the kind of information section, the show notes of these podcasts.
Yep. If you have a question in between or want to talk to one of us specifically, it's Danielle.she'sfun on Instagram and TikTok, and
Food Allergies OTG on Instagram and TikTok. I think on TikTok it's spelled out on the go instead of OTG. I need to check that. Also, I should probably keep it consistent, but I am not a good social media person, like in terms of like how you're supposed to do things. I'm winging it.
No, you're more consistent than I am. Honestly, I thought you were going to say if TikTok even exists next week.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, that's right. Isn't there all that drama? Okay, that's another that's another topic for another time. Yes. But yes, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.